All right, Jimmy Garoppolo signing with the Las Vegas Raiders, 3 years, $67.5 million and $34 million in guarantees. The Raiders, of course, pick at 7 overall. So the debate there is, do you go the veteran route? Are you going to draft someone? Jimmy Garoppolo, though, getting reunited with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, I think the answer is probably both, right? Like Jimmy G is insurance, effectively. The Panthers, their insurance was trading up to number 1 so that they control the entire draft and whatever happens. And they can guarantee that they're getting whatever quarterback they want or in a position to move around and get a quarterback at the end of it. The Raiders picking at 7, we're sort of facing the prospect of either we have to execute a trade like that or we're at the mercy of hoping a quarterback we like is still sitting here at 7, which is not, a guarantee. The Jimmy G thing is, well, at least we got Jimmy G, whatever happens. So, from that point of view, I think that's fine.
I think this is a desperation panic move after probably missing out on trading up to number 1 overall. Finally put out by Dan Graziano of ESPN. They tried to do that. I heard the same during the week. You give more guaranteed money than Geno Smith got from the Seattle Seahawks in $34 million. It's above the franchise tag. Geno Smith got around $28 million. Look, he was in San Fran for 6 seasons. He missed time in 4 of them, significant time in 2 of those years. Broke his foot this past year, had an ankle issue, tore his ACL. This is just a lateral move, in my opinion. You had $40 million guaranteed to Carr. You give him $34 million guaranteed. So why did you have to go through all of that? If it's not clear, I'm not a fan of this move.
How much does the familiarity help, though? Garoppolo, of course, was with McDaniels in New England. Now, New England was the team that drafted Garoppolo. It was Jimmy G's 2-0 start to the 2016 season. The
start of his perpetual winning record in the NFL. That was the start of it. 2-0.
He's 40-17 in the regular season, 4-2 in the playoffs. If
Can't
you're
argue
into
with
that
that
at all. All I'm saying is the Niners were clearly a different team when Garoppolo was the quarterback, even when they tried to get rid of him. Bring him back. They win a ton of games, of course, until Purdy took over.
Yeah.
But for a while, they were a team that just won a lot. And, of course, he puts up good stats that we always attributed to Kyle Shanahan. So I want to say Garoppolo, even though Derek Carr didn't look good in that system last year, if Darren Waller's healthy and back with the Raiders, it's a pretty good situation for Garoppolo to look good again and at least play better than Carr did last year, even if he's not better, year over year.
And it's likely, it's likely a 1-year deal with an out, right? And then 1 year, it's definitely not cheap, but I think to ensure that you are not the team left there with no quarterbacks when the music stops, I think it's a reasonable response to what has already happened and the dominoes that have fallen. Again, presuming you're not going to land Aaron Rodgers, and at this point, you probably can't bank on that. If you're anybody, the Jets are obviously still in there, but the Raiders can't bank on getting Rodgers. Other quarterbacks have been signed. Jimmy G's the last guy there standing. You're still probably going to add one in the draft if you get lucky or if the draft falls your way. But it would have been very easy for them to all of a sudden be looking at nothing. Like there's no quarterback available, and now like Jacoby Brissett needs to come in and be your starter if indeed you get that signed before all this happens.
I'm just not sure Jacoby Brissett for 2 years, $15 million is a worse deal. Also has familiarity with Josh McDaniels from their New England days. Actually played that year where Jimmy started 2-0. He injures his thumb, I think it is, because all he does is get hurt. And Brissett comes in and also I think wins 2 games. So you can make the same argument. Yeah, he played in 6 playoff games. He has 4 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions in those games. And I just think, you're not going to get a better version than the version you saw with Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. Yes, the weapons are great. They'll probably figure out the offensive line. It wasn't terrible last year in Las Vegas, but I would have gone the cheaper route. Does this move the needle against Patrick Mahomes?
No, it does not. No, look, that part I get. For Garoppolo, he's always been a guy that has not played as well as his stats would indicate by our grades, right? Mm-hmm. He's the guy that even in their Super Bowl year with the Niners, he was QB 13 in our grading, but they'd have a top 5 most efficient passing offense, 8.3 yards per attempt over the last 3 years. That's a huge number, but doing it with one of the shortest average depths of target. That is an indicator of playmakers, yards after the catch, and a great play calling. So that is Jimmy Garoppolo right now. As long as the Raiders are drafting their next guy, though, at 7, even if it is the 4th quarterback off the board, it ends up becoming essentially a bridge deal. An expensive one, but a bridge deal.
Right. I will say what will be kind of fascinating is, assuming he starts this year, and we get to see him in this Josh McDaniels offense again, for the first time in a long time, Jimmy G has always been this slightly interesting quarterback where he gets talked about as a kind of game manager quarterback because we know fundamentally he's been a product of Kyle Shanahan more than the other way around. But game managing quarterbacks, you think of those guys, like the first thing that's supposed to jump to mind is they don't really turn the ball over much. They protect the football, don't do a ton on top of that, but the fact that they don't screw things up is why things work. Jimmy G has always had a really high turnover-worthy play rate for a guy that gets labeled as a game-managing quarterback. For his career, it's 3.6%, and it's been over 4% multiple times. And he's always had this tendency to kind of, why did you not see that linebacker? Why did you not see the safety standing right in front of where you're throwing it? But he works the middle of the field maybe more or more often or certainly more aggressive than almost any other quarterback. Does that dynamic shift with Josh McDaniels as opposed to this 49ers offense where they kind of want him working those areas of the field? If you run a more not conventional, but a more diverse offense in terms of where you're attacking, can you actually take away some of those turnover-worthy plays from Jimmy G and potentially actually get a better version of him?
All right, so Jimmy Garoppolo off the market now. What does this do for the New York Jets, who as of right now, while we're talking, don't have their quarterback? They're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. If things fall flat with Aaron Rodgers, Garoppolo was supposed to be the fallback for the Jets and reunited with their, some of his old coaches.
And the Dolphins just stole Mike White from them.
And the Dolphins just stole Mike White. So what are the Jets doing? Just waiting for Aaron Rodgers' decision, and if that doesn't work out, they're on to the next tier of quarterback.
The Jets are busy installing an isolation tank in the facility to try and desperately get Aaron Rodgers. If they don't get him, they're screwed.
If they don't get him, do they enter the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes? Do they make another big move? Because you can't strike out this offseason.
Or the draft. They pick
13th.
Right. So. It's not where you want to be, but it's close enough to do something aggressive.
Maybe convince like a Seattle at 5 or Detroit at 6 or something like that to trade down. Potentially, and get the Will Levis or whoever the fourth quarterback is.
It's very similar. 49ers went from 12 to 3, and that cost them 3. It's that kind of ballpark.
Yep.
So that's the alternative for the Jets.
Yeah.
Garoppolo's off the market, which is fine. Look, I get what your sentiment, Brad, especially in the AFC West. You're trying to beat Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert's Chargers, who both teams should be better than the Raiders.
But the Jets
Garoppolo's just keeping you afloat. Yeah. He's not getting you over the hump.
But the Jets is now the sort of potential cautionary tale. But the alternative to what the Raiders did just here with Jimmy Garoppolo is effectively what the Jets are doing, which is going all or nothing for Aaron Rodgers. That's what the Raiders did not want to happen, is at least the nothing side of the all or nothing gamble. The Jets obviously still think that they've got enough shot at the all part that they're okay with it, but if you don't, you're in real trouble.
So the Raiders, they're at least going to stay afloat here. They should be a competitive team.
You mentioned attack in the middle of the field. You have Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. It does make sense for a lot of reasons. One interesting counterpart, though, is the Raiders haven't finished top 25 in e-paper play against on defense in any of the last 4 seasons.
They've been
talking about the turnovers and Garoppolo being a game manager and all those things. Can he do that if they're giving up 30 points a game? That's a complication as well.
It will probably be the worst overall supporting cast that Garoppolo has had because of his time in San Francisco, and when he did play those 2 games with New England, they were almost an undefeated team once Tom Brady came back. So there you go. Garoppolo to the Raiders, and we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets.